Thank you for taking some time for yourself. And I don't know if your anger is fiery, intense, boiling, furious, seething, explosive, enraged, heated, irate, or rage. But what I do know is you deserve a mental vacation. So I invite you to close your eyes and imagine some special place. Perfect. And I don't know if you're thinking of Disneyland, Fiji, or somewhere else. But you can leave that anger here. And you can go somewhere else. And you can be loving life with each breath as you go somewhere comfortable, perfect. And while you're gone, nothing can strengthen this anger. And so perhaps it will grow a little weaker and weaker. And by the time you return, there'll be very little, if any, left at all. Thank you for being here. You make the world a better place. And I'm curious if you can notice your chest rising, falling, expanding, relaxing deeper into existence. And while you're existing, I'm not sure you're aware how special you are. You've slowed down your breath rate, heart rate, without me asking that of you. That's how special you are. Maybe in the past you felt you had just snapped, could have handled things differently or something else. But the truth is, anyone in your situation will completely understand how you've been going about things. But it's got nothing to do with you. There's a process to it being different. And I just know someone as resourceful as you has experienced moments where you might have had slightly more finesse than a colleague or family member. And in a moment, I'm going to share with you a few stories. And at first you might be thinking, why am I sharing with you these stories? But your subconscious mind will be listening and do something wonderful for you a little later on. Once upon a time, there was a very unfair prince. He seemed a perfect leader, brave, intelligent, and to some handsome. But if two people seeked out his assistance to resolve an argument, the prince would always be in favour of the one that was most charming. And so a wise friend decided to invite him on a journey. And you can only imagine the adventure they were about to commence. But you might already know they suffered a boat malfunction and ended up on a deserted island. No food, no water. And it gives everyone a pleasant experience to know they did catch some fish the first few days, but slowly the prince caught less and less food compared to his wise friend. And at first there were crocodile tears from the prince, jealousy, watching his friend eat large amounts of food. And finally a rescue boat arrived, and on their journey home, They stopped off at one of those wonderful mountain towns. And a gentleman recognized the prince and said, "My village trades meat and vegetables with you. Can you help us because our neighbor is also arguing?" And you can only imagine the prince gave them the most unusual answer, which was to share the food in equal proportion. And you could hear the cries of the angry men within minutes from the other side of the mountain, so they threw the prince in prison. And the mountain people visited the prince in prison and said, "We're very large compared to the people on the other side. They're very small. You need to resolve this problem." And the prince spent all night thinking when he came to the conclusion to share the food so everyone can eat as much as they choose. And they gifted that prince with gold and jewels and set him free. And it reminds me of the spiritual teacher and his disciples when they began their evening meditation. And the cat who lived in the monastery made such a noise that it distracted them. So the teacher ordered the cat be put on a lead during meditation session. And when the cat eventually died, another cat was brought to the monastery and it was put on a lead. Centuries later, spiritual teachers would write scholarly treatises about the significance of putting a cat on the lead for meditation practice. And it reminds me of apparently a true story. In 2007, during a tube strike, a journalist named Gareth Edwards was standing in a long queue, waiting for a bus in London. And he had a magnificent idea. He turned to the woman behind him and asked, "Would you like to go ahead in front of me?" And she accepted. He asked the next person behind him, "Excuse me, would you like to go ahead of me?" And they accepted. And he kept going until there were at least 60 or 70 people ahead of him. And the bus finally pulls up, and one of the women at the front of the queue shouts, "Young man, do you want to go in front of me?" And as a wise man once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I don't know what you'll need to pack for your future, but I'm curious about you. Like all great masterpieces of art, life's breath goes into every stroke. I don't know if you'll use innovation or imagination to plan out your life's masterpiece. And some people love to time travel 20 or 10 years into the future and step back to admire how they got there. And like all vacations and wonderful journeys, there are things you need to leave behind. And I can only imagine someone as fabulous as you. It's probably an epic adventure. And for that, you might need a lot of skills, tools, and focus. And as you know, people can be awfully observant or pessimistic. Maybe there was a time you didn't know. To be a little kinder to yourself, because you can, can't you? And every time you choose to focus on your masterpiece, you are creating your future. And every time you deliberately choose to focus on your masterpiece rather than being caught up in the moment. You are creating your future, little by little, moment by moment. You'll begin to not only be able to predict your destiny, but count on it, create it, and bank on it. So when you're ready to bring this masterpiece back into your external world, you can stretch out, wriggle your fingers and toes, and open your eyes. Welcome back. You're perfect, just as you are.